Today, I have to do something I hoped I would never have to do, which is confronting the narrative of a YouTuber with 15 million subscribers. Moist Critical, penguinz0, Charlie, whatever you call him, he's a big dude. He's a big, important guy, gets millions of views every single day. Big, big, enormous YouTuber, the likes of which I could never hope to reach in 1,000 years, most likely. I don't look like Jesus at all. That's not a good start. But I digress, because we've got a problem here. He has a narrative about Boeing that I think is not true. This video of his is called Boeing is Evil. Now, that's not the untrue narrative. Boeing does seem like an evil corporation. There's no doubt about that. What I'm talking about is the assassination conspiracy, the idea that Boeing is now assassinating whistleblowers, and oh boy, I'm really getting into it now. So we're going to watch this video and take it on, I guess. So bear with me, please.
Another Boeing whistleblower has died. What a weird coincidence that is, right? Two Boeing whistleblowers dying under mysterious circumstances back to back in a matter of only 2 months? Man, that's peculiar, isn't it?
Well, it is a little bit peculiar, but peculiar doesn't mean it's a conspiracy. Now, there are real conspiracies in the world. They do take place. It is known to occur sometimes, but this does not seem like one. He called it mysterious circumstances, but if you look into the actual case, the circumstances seem a lot less than mysterious. On March 9th, the body of John Barnett was found, reportedly of a suicide. He suffered from PTSD and anxiety, two conditions which are known to increase a person's risk of suicide by up to 5 times normal levels. John Barnett first became a whistleblower in 2017 by filing a case with OSHA against Boeing. In 2021, OSHA decided in favor of Boeing. In 2021, he and his lawyer decided to amend the case to talk about workplace harassment. At the time of his death, this case was being relitigated, but all the information he had exposed was already out there. His depositions in this case would add nothing new except for perhaps the workplace harassment. While there is no doubt he wanted to see Boeing get theirs, the result was far from certain considering he lost on the same information the first time. Adding in workplace harassment may have caused them to rule in his favor on the workplace harassment, but there's no guarantee Boeing would have suffered any consequences whatsoever. But the case will go on regardless, so killing him really didn't help a whole lot, and in fact, if you were up against somebody in court, the wise move is to not kill them, or you might bring more attention to yourself. Look at how this has gone so far. There is, as far as we can tell, zero evidence whatsoever Boeing was involved in the death of John Barnett. And yet, John Barnett's death is being used to lead a conspiracy suggesting Boeing killed him. Now, I would argue that Boeing does have responsibility for his death. No doubt the PTSD and anxiety he suffered came from Boeing's treatment of him, as did the workplace harassment problems. This is all a big problem. And by turning it into a conspiracy, we're forgetting the life and death of John Barnett. We are essentially making it a more complicated case than it needs to be, and it's going to be turning people off. What I mean by that is simply this. It's going to be a whole hell of a lot harder to get justice against a shadowy group of assassins than it is to get justice against Boeing for the crimes they have actually committed. The average person is going to see this conspiracy theory and think, well, that's stupid. I know Boeing is bad, but I don't think Boeing is assassinating people and making it look like suicides. Which brings us to the next case. While it is within the realm of possibility that Boeing hired a group of shadowy assassins to kill a man and make it look like a suicide, it's very far outside of the realm of possibility for Joshua Dean to have been killed. The reason is he developed influenza B, which is a pretty common infection. He also developed pneumonia, again, a pretty common infection. Then he developed MRSA, which is thankfully a lot less common and a little bit more dangerous. However, all three of these things are typically survived by people who are younger and have stronger immune systems. He was, I think, 45 years old, so his immune system should have been strong enough to give him a good chance against all three of those things. Unfortunately, he did not make it. But, regardless, he did have a good chance of surviving. So it seems very odd that Boeing would take such a risk. Why wouldn't they just have him assassinated the same way as the other guy? Why would they rely on a bacterial infection to get the job done when that's not very likely to work? It seems like a bad plan, and I presume an evil corporation like Boeing would be smarter than that. My overall point here is that suicides are pretty common, and so are bacterial infections, which don't normally kill people but sometimes do, at any age range. These things are terribly unfortunate, but mysterious? I don't know about mysterious. These don't seem like mysterious events to me. There doesn't seem to be any evidence whatsoever that Joshua Dean could have been given MRSA by Boeing. There also doesn't seem to be any evidence whatsoever that John Barnett was killed by Boeing. There just isn't any evidence, which is a big problem for the idea that these are terribly mysterious events.
Must just be really bad RNG. No reason to investigate that any further, I'm sure. So, for those that don't know, being a Boeing whistleblower is more detrimental to your health than smoking cigarettes. At least the cigarettes kill you slowly over a period of years, whereas being a Boeing whistleblower kills you almost immediately.
I get that he's being hyperbolic because hyperbole is funny, and he's a very funny guy. He's one of the reasons I'm on YouTube. If there were no Charlie, there would be no me here right now criticizing him. So I get it. You gotta be funny about it. But John Barnett first came out with these allegations 7 years ago. 7 years he's been walking around free, just able to say whatever he wanted to say about Boeing, and they never killed him. The other guy, as far as I'm aware, he released his allegations in 2022, and they've all come out. It seems like a very bad strategy to kill whistleblowers only after they've already revealed everything about your operations and how it works. There are about 30 of these whistleblowers. Two of them are dead. That's actually pretty good odds. You take a group of about 30 people, any 30 people, it's probably pretty likely for one or two of them to die any given set of years. In my own friend group alone, a couple years ago, I had two different friends die, one from suicide and one from the flu, of all things. That's from my friend group. My friend group at that time was about 15 people. Did I assassinate them? Well, no, it happens sometimes. It's very unfortunate, but it happens. That's how statistics work.
Like, skydiving without a parachute is safer for you than blowing the whistle on Boeing and all of their shadiness. So, a month ago, there was a Boeing whistleblower named John Barnett who was found dead with apparent self inflicted gunshot wounds, the timing of which was really interesting considering he was at the tail end of an extremely important lawsuit that he was engaged in with Boeing. And according to everyone that knew him, he was extremely excited to be done with that lawsuit. And in fact, shortly before he was found dead, he'd actually told people that if he does turn up dead, just know he didn't do it to himself.
That is not true. That is an allegation some random person made. We have no evidence this random person knew him. He did not say anything like that, and I noticed Charlie has yet to mention the PTSD or anxiety angles, or the workplace harassment, or this case actually taking place over about 7 years, or anything like that. Maybe, just maybe, it's a good idea to be more skeptical about what you're hearing. Don't just believe something because it's convenient. Now, I want to think Boeing is evil as much as the next person. I do. I do think Boeing is an evil corporation. They have shown multiple times they don't care whether people live or die as long as they're making money. So I understand, like, feeling like Boeing could be killing people. I understand that feeling very well. They've shown they don't give a shit. But you gotta have evidence. And some random person saying, oh, he said he would never kill himself. That's not evidence. Some random person that we don't know who they are, that they presumably never knew him, versus his family who said, yeah, we think this was a suicide because he had PTSD and anxiety. You gotta be more critical than this. You can't just accept a narrative because it sounds good to your ears. You have to acknowledge that maybe, just maybe, things aren't always what you want them to be. Yes, I would like to believe that Boeing are a bunch of evil people doing evil things. Do I think they're out there assassinating people with suicides and MRSA? Well, no. I don't think that because there's no evidence for that.
Probably circumstantial evidence, that probably doesn't mean anything. Just don't think too hard and accept the shit that they feed you with the official story that he just decided while sitting in his truck to blow his goddamn brains out. That makes a lot of sense here. I stand by my assessment that John Barnett was assassinated by Boeing. I don't believe it's Boeing themselves, but I believe it's a couple high-ranking members within Boeing that are taking matters into their own hands and doing these things.
Why do you believe that? What evidence is there to support that conclusion? If it's going to be somebody in Boeing, why not like a whole cabal of people in Boeing? Why? What makes you narrow it down to one or two people in specific? See, this is the essence of critical thinking. You have to ask, where is the evidence for the claim you're making? You can make any kind of claim you want. We all do it sometimes. We all claim things. But in a case like this, which is so serious, you are accusing some people of assassinating other people. Where is the evidence for this? I mean, a guy has died in what seems to be a suicide. Some random person comes out and says, well, he said he'd never kill himself. His family comes out and says, well, he had a lot of mental problems going on, and we think he did kill himself. Why do you believe the random person who we don't even know they are or if they knew him? And, again, on top of that, what makes you think it's one or two people within Boeing going rogue? Now, I don't know what makes him think this. Maybe it's a strategy to protect himself from, like, being sued or something. I don't know. I'd like to see the justification for why he thinks this in specific is the case.
It's the only thing, the only explanation that makes any level of sense to this. So I made a whole
How? How does that explanation make any sense to somebody committing suicide and another person dying of MRSA? How does that explanation make the most sense? Another thing is that I say this a lot on my channel. The universe does not exist to satisfy us and our senses that things must make sense. There are plenty of things in this universe that just don't make any sense to our brains. Try to fathom a fucking black hole. That shit don't make no sense, but they are real. They are really out there. Just because something makes sense in your mind does not make it the case. You need evidence for your claims. And here, I have heard none. It's just, well, I believe that, man. I believe it.
whole video breaking down the evidence in the John Barnett case, as well as an entire Red Thread episode dedicated to uncovering all of the shadiness and corruption within Boeing. That company is fucked. Jackson, Windigoon, and myself went through the entire history of Boeing, and they are so corrupt it would make Umbrella Corporation blush at how evil Boeing is. It is shocking.
Well, they haven't created zombies yet, but they certainly are pretty high up there on like the unethical, complete monster scale of things. Yeah, for real companies, they are a bad one.
So I really do think that these two whistleblowers were the victims of some kind of assassination. So let's talk about the most.
Okay, so prove it. Let's see some proof for this assertion. Come on, it shouldn't be that hard. If you're this confident, I'd like to see it. But you know what this reminds me of? I don't know if anybody remembers like the Boston Marathon bombings, where the Reddit Bureau of Investigation got involved. A bunch of Redditors trying to track down the people who did it, and getting like innocent people in trouble and like almost like hurt, harassed, death threats. People had to be protected by police because Reddit and 4chan figured out it was the wrong people. They didn't get the people right. That's the big risk with like just asserting that something must be true because it feels true to you. I mean, Reddit, they definitely thought of themselves as proper investigators. They had paper trails and everything, and they were wrong. They were just wrong. So this shit right here, this is actually like dangerous for real.
Most recent whistleblower. His name is Joshua Dean. I learned about it last night while playing Crab Souls, and well, it's not the real name of the game. The name of the game is Another Crab's Treasure, and it's a banger. But while playing this game, chat told me that another Boeing whistleblower had just turned up dead, and I thought they were memeing. And it turns out they weren't. They were actually telling the truth. Oh.
Again, dead of an infection that doesn't usually kill, but can. All infections can kill, but this one doesn't usually. It seems odd to try to assassinate someone with an infection that doesn't kill very often.
See, the second Boeing whistleblower got murked? No shot the other whistleblower's dead. No shot. It's real.
It's not the other, there are about 30 of them.
No, I don't believe that. Hold on, I'm looking that shit up right now. No! What? It's just in plain sight. Yeah, whistleblower Josh Dean of Boeing supplier Spirit Aerosystems has died.
I kind of wonder, like, how legitimate that reaction was. I don't know if our guy here can act. I sure as shit can't. He is an actor. But that reaction just seemed a bit much. A bit too much. Like, kind of fake. But if it was real, well, that's kind of silly. You didn't know anything about it yet. I mean, he could have just He could have fallen in his house, bonked his head, and that would be a conspiracy too, I guess. I mean, what are the ways in which Boeing employees, whistleblowers, could die that someone couldn't say is a conspiracy? In what ways could they go that are non conspiratorial? At this point, since we are all primed to believe that Boeing is evil, because they are, if anybody dies or gets injured, it's automatically going to be suspicious. If we can't conclude that somebody wasn't killed by Boeing because they got an infection, then how can we conclude that anybody who ever dies from now on involved in this case died naturally? Literally, all of those 30 whistleblowers, all of them are going to be killed by Boeing now because there's no way to prove that they weren't. So everybody's just going to assume they were. That's a big problem with conspiracies, and that's why when normal people hear this shit, they go, I don't believe that. And it makes the whole case a lot less credible. If you care about this case, you should be more cautious with the evidence. Now, I know that Charlie is an entertainer. I get that. He's an entertainer. He's here to entertain. He's not like serious commentator guy. He's not a super like journalist or anything. But if you really care about this shit, you gotta be more careful than this. This shit right here, it makes your case less credible. If you care, you won't just jump to crazy conclusions like, oh my god, they killed him with MRSA.
What? Another Boeing whistleblower is dead. 6 hours ago, yeah. Joshua Dean, a former quality auditor at Boeing supplier Spirit Aerosystems and one of the first whistleblowers to allege Spirit leadership had ignored manufacturing defects on the 737 MAX, died Tuesday morning after a struggle with a sudden, fast-spreading infection. Oh, that's interesting. This time it wasn't bullet to the head? They're getting creative with their assassinations.
Yeah, man, it's really creative to assassinate somebody with influenza that results in them developing pneumonia, which results in them getting MRSA. That is a really creative way to assassinate somebody because that's not how anybody would assassinate somebody. If I, just a normal person, can see that's a bad idea, surely the assassin would hear this plan and be like, hey, boss, I don't know if this one's going to work, my guy. I think we need a new plan for this one. Um, I think we should do something that'll like, succeed for sure. Because this ain't it, man.
That's crazy. This is the most dangerous thing you can be as a Boeing whistleblower. That's more dangerous than being like a fucking volcano lava taste tester. This shit, it's just in plain sight. His entire family stated he was healthy until after he blew the whistle. He lived a very healthy lifestyle and the illness was sudden and unexpected.
I wonder where he was reading this from specifically, because it sounds like whatever website he's reading from is framing this information in a certain way. Yes, you can be healthy and get an infection and die from it. That is a thing that is known to happen to non whistleblowers. People do get infections, and again, a couple years ago, I had a friend who got the flu and died from it. Before that, she was perfectly healthy. Do I think somebody assassinated her with the flu? No, sometimes it happens. It's very unfortunate, it's very rare, but it's known to happen. It's a weird conspiracy, guys. It's a weird one, fellas.
Yeah, he contracted that. Stick it to the monneosis from Boeing. Joshua Dean was a quality auditor at Boeing supplier Spirit Aerosystems and was among the first whistleblowers to accuse Spirit leadership of ignoring defects on the 737 MAX, and he died shortly after contracting influenza B, MRSA, and then developing pneumonia. Now, for those that are unaware, Boeing has a history of just ignoring safety precautions. And
Doesn't this, in some way or another, disperse with his idea? Earlier, Charlie said he believed that somebody within Boeing had gone rogue and decided to just kill people, right? Well, in this case, the person in question wasn't even actually working for Boeing. They were working for Spirit Aerosystems. So wouldn't it have to be a Spirit Aerosystems person that gets offended enough to kill this person? Wouldn't Boeing want to go after their own people first? Why would a random Boeing person want to go after the guy accusing Spirit Aerosystems of things? It obviously is very strongly linked to Boeing, obviously, and the concern was about Boeing products, but the complaint would have been against Spirit Aerosystems, wouldn't it? Doesn't this go against Charlie's conspiracy idea here? It seems like it would, right?
and just hiding things. So, in the previous case with John Barnett, we actually learned quite a few alarming things, such as there were times where scrap metal was used for Boeing planes in order to meet deadlines. They'd also keep things off the books as much as possible. They even used Dawn dish soap as a lubricant for the aircraft door seals at one point. Then they also used hotel key cards and wet cheesecloths to perform maintenance. Just an absolute smorgasbord of
I mean, you don't have to convince me that these companies are evil and cut corners. That's pretty apparent. I think everybody knows that at this point. You don't have to convince any of us of that.
malpractice, at least in my perspective here. Of course, I'm not an aircraft specialist, but using
You can say that again. And you know, at the very end there of that last one he showed, it did say that they are framing it now as being innovative decisions. So are those things all necessarily terrible? Well, no, some of them could actually work. I mean, a lot of the time, you can have things work that you didn't expect to, and they're not exactly cutting corners. Now, obviously, using scrap metal in certain conditions is going to be a very bad idea, but using like dish soap for lubricant is not as crazy as it would seem. I know it has been used in that way in other industries, so it being used that way in the airspace industry doesn't really set off too many red flags. Now, if there are regulations against it, I would say the answer is well, yes, it does. But I'm not sure there were. As far as cutting corners go, it's bad to cut corners. And if they did that to cut corners, then yes, that is bad by default. Now, if they did that to test something, not so bad. Um, but again, you don't have to convince me that Boeing is evil. I think we're all on board with that one. It's just the whole are they assassinating people thing that I'm not sold on, and frankly, I don't think anybody should be sold on. Is it within the realm of possibility? Well, yes, I guess. Is it likely? Well, no, not really. I would say it's pretty damn improbable.
Dawn dish soap and hotel keycards, that doesn't really seem like textbook protocol there. That sounds like something you'd read on WikiHow for a DIY aircraft maintenance at your own home for like an RC aircraft, not a fucking Boeing. So these gentlemen
Well, again, to reiterate, he is not an expert. Neither am I. Neither one of us is qualified to speak on what exactly these corporations were doing right or wrong. Now, of course, as a layman, I tend to agree with Charlie on what he just said. But again, we are not experts. We would not know. So if any experts on this stuff see this, please do tell us in the comments. Do let us know exactly what you think of these, cost cutting, corner cutting measures. Let us know.
came forward to try and alert the public about what Boeing's been doing, or rather, not doing, that they should be, and they've both paid the ultimate price for it. In my eyes, they're heroes for the work they've tried to do here.
Again, we are in complete agreement. See, we can agree on most of the details where the devil is hiding. But, it turns out there are some details where the devil is just like not even hiding. It's just below that. We're talking about like ninth circle shit here, which is the whole murder conspiracy part. I really want him to come back to that so we can see on what grounds he's justifying this. I would really like to know.
So, being a Boeing whistleblower is basically like just taking a cyanide capsule at this point, it seems. It's just more of a matter of when, not
I gotta say again, I think the hyperbole here is it's not really going to help people take this whole thing seriously. Now, of course, his followers are going to hear this, and many of them don't understand jokes. He is making a joke. Now, of course, he feels very strongly about it, but it's obviously hyperbole. But some of his fans aren't gonna his some of his fans are pretty young. They're not gonna know this. They're gonna take his word as gospel. They're going to assume everything he's saying here is completely true. And I think it is dangerous to have a platform this big and not be more careful with your words. Shit, I try to be pretty careful with my words, and I'm like just on the brink of 7,000 subscribers. This man, if you don't know who he is, I imagine some of you are older or disconnected and don't know much about like the big dudes on YouTube. 15 million subscribers. He gets millions of views day in and day out from videos like this. This video, I think, has like 1.4 million views, and it just came out like yesterday. He is a big guy. He has a big platform. I think some degree of social responsibility is called for.
Let's go deeper into the case of Joshua Dean here because this one seems So blatant. His mother and stepfather described him as a health nut who rarely drank and attended church regularly. He started feeling sick around 2 weeks ago. He stayed home from work for a couple days, but things got worse. Sunday, April 21st, is when his mother got a call from him that he was really sick, having trouble breathing, and he went to immediate care, and they told him he had strep throat. She went to check on her son and telling him to call her if he felt worse, and he did call her a couple hours later and said that he was going to the emergency room and that he was scared because they found something in his lungs. He tested.
So he was sick for about 2 weeks before he ended up having trouble breathing and went to the hospital. In 2019, I had pneumonia and I was sick for about a week because I didn't realize it was pneumonia. I thought it was the flu or something. I was sick for a week with that, and I ended up having to go to the hospital after exactly 7 days because I was having trouble breathing. Apparently, I was going septic at that time, and if I had waited just like a few more hours, I would have died. I was a pretty healthy person at the time, certainly a lot more than now. I was a lot skinnier. I didn't smoke, I didn't drink, none of that stuff. I got a lot of exercise, and in fact, I actually got pneumonia probably from the person I exercised with the most. And before anybody, like, I know I have some creepy followers here. Before anybody tries to make like a sex thing out of it, no, it's a person I went to a punk show with. We went to a punk show. We used to like run together, all that good stuff. They got it first. Didn't cause them any problems, but then it spread to me, caused me a whole hell of a lot of problems, and gave me a huge hospital bill. I was healthy, so I know as well as anyone. If you have something like a bacterial infection and wait too long, you can die from it. I was probably hours away from just like sepsis taking over my body and leaving me maimed or dead. I mean, that stuff is very serious. Like Jim Henson, the Muppets guy, the Muppets guy, he had strep throat for about 2 weeks, maybe not even 2 weeks, maybe like 10 days or something. And he didn't get treated for it. And he died. He died from it. He was only like 52 or something, wasn't it? He died from it. So it does happen. Yeah, healthy people can die from this stuff. They do. It happens.
Positive for influenza B. He tested positive for MRSA. He had pneumonia. His lungs were completely filled up, and from there he just went downhill. This was a stunning turn of events for Dean and his family because he was described.
I'd say he probably got MRSA in the hospital because MRSA just is all over hospitals. He probably went to the hospital with pneumonia and probably got MRSA like immediately after getting there, and just it got him. It got him. I'd say that's how it happened.
As someone who was very healthy. He went to the gym, ran nearly every day, and was very careful about his diet. Yeah, quote, this was his first time ever in a hospital. He didn't even have a doctor because he was never sick.
So I think that's another very interesting thing. He didn't even have a doctor because he was never sick. Maybe he was sick sometimes and just didn't have a doctor. Maybe he was one of those like health nuts who takes it like way too far, and whenever they're sick, they're just like, ah, these essential oils will fix me up, man. Now I don't know that for sure. Obviously, I can't say for sure. But when somebody doesn't even have a doctor, that's kind of like a red flag, isn't it? See, you got to ask these kinds of questions. You got to ask like if all of these things add up to something other than he was poisoned, I guess, I don't know what they're alleging happened here. I don't know how you give somebody MRSA. I don't know how that's supposed to happen.
But within days, his kidneys gave out and he was relying on an ECMO life support machine to do the work of his heart and lungs. The night before Dean died, Green said medical staff in Oklahoma did a bronchoscopy on his lungs. The doctor said he'd never seen anything like it before in his life. His lungs were just totally gummed up and like a mesh over them.
Okay, so let this be a lesson to all of you out there. If you have an infection, please don't wait 2 weeks to go to a hospital, or your lungs might be totally gummed up with like a mesh over them. Does that sound like a situation you want to be in? No? Me neither.
Unfortunately, it sounds like Dean came down with a severe case of Boeing whistleblower lung, which is a serious medical condition that only affects Boeing whistleblowers in particular.
What exactly is the allegation here? This is one thing that we don't have an answer to yet. What is Charlie saying that they did to him exactly? Did they genetically engineer a virus to be more dangerous than normal? Did they genetically engineer the bacterial infection to be more dangerous than normal? Did they engineer the pneumonia to cause MRSA somehow? You can't really do that. I mean, MRSA is its own thing. How exactly are they supposed to have done this? I don't get it, dude. What What are you alleging exactly?
It makes coal miners' lungs look clean in comparison. So I'm not surprised that this was the doctor's first time seeing anything like this because
Did they say that it makes coal miners' lungs look clean in comparison? I don't see that here. Do you see that here? I don't see that here. I mean, you can't see it right now, but go back once I'm done talking about it. And anyway, it just goes on and on like this. It's just more of this stuff, more hyperbole and more assertions, more ignoring blatant signs that things are a lot more normal than they seem. So I think we can end it here. I think we can just stop. I think I've blasted you with enough. And I guess now I just got to wait and see if the rabid Charlie fans show up to show me and tell me how much they believe in the conspiracy now. Jesus, here we go, everybody. But if you're still here, I hope you enjoyed, for whatever that's worth. I hope you have a good one. Be safe. Don't get killed by Boeing.